Hello once again. This is the very final video of this series, and in this final segment I would like to share some final thoughts with you that I think may be relevant for the discussion we had so far. So when I designed the content for these videos, I had two major objectives in mind. First and most important, my aim was to provoke you to rethink about the potential uses of quantitative methods in your practice, in your research. How can, if you're not a practitioner of quantitative methods, how can you incorporate them in what you do, in your work, in your studies, and so on. And certainly the more you learn or become more familiar with quantitative methods, you may appreciate more the contributions it can bring to the table, and you will also become more critical about misuses of this technique. If you think that way or take this perspective after watching these videos, my mission has been accomplished. And the second element that I'd like to cover here, or the second motivation, was what gave name to this series of videos, right? I aim to provide some background information and some context so we can demystify what quantitative methods are, what they can do, and so on. And in this process of addressing and understanding and eventually criticizing quantitative methods, we saw that some critiques could also be applied to other methods, traditions as well, right? Different methods have their own skeletons in their own closets. But thankfully, these different research traditions have engaged seriously in addressing those serious issues. Next, I'd like to share this idea that, well, when we're talking about different methods, quantitative, qualitative, theory, formal, etc., we have been exposed, or we can notice that there are many different experiences and perspectives in research practice. And having different perspectives and understandings of what is good research practice, well, it's part of the game. There are strong arguments in both sides. And to illustrate how different understandings and perspectives are just part of the landscape, I will give you an example using Plato. Plato is well known for his philosophical work, and scholars in many different continents and different cultures have been discussing his legacy for more than 2,000 years now. And there is still several disagreements of what Plato aimed to communicate, especially when it comes to his political ideas. We can even say that opposite ideas have emerged from the interpretation of Plato's work. Karl Popper, the famous philosopher of science that I mentioned earlier today, when he wrote his Open Society and Its Enemies, he claimed that Plato is the father of totalitarian politics because of some of his arguments about who should govern the city, what were the qualifications. The philosopher king should have, if not absolute, disproportional voice on the decisions to be made. And then he concluded that, well, this is the seed of totalitarianism in the 20th century and in other centuries as well. But there are other philosophers like Chatelet who argue that Plato was probably the first Marxist. Because Plato emphasized community life, he emphasized, or he was the first to propose, one of the first to propose at least that women and men should share the political command of the city. Women should take part in the in political decisions, including the major ones. And well, these ideas of Plato, as you see, have been the same idea of what would be good life, how a city should be governed. This has been interpreted in all polar opposite ways over the centuries. So it's fine to have disagreements and to argue that certain perspectives are more correct or more interesting or more accurate than others, or at least more promising than others, right? And finally, I would share as my very final thought here is that there are many reasons to justify why quantitative methods have enjoyed a bad fame over the past decades or centuries, or at least during the 20th century. It's not uncommon that practitioners and users of quantitative methods have been done and said things that result or to lead the layperson or the non-specialist to the inevitable conclusion that quantitative methods can only be used to control populations, to learn about populations, to better exert power on and over them. But despite of this impression, I would say that things are not always what they seem. And to illustrate that, I bring to you a series of Roman Greek statues. The statues we see today, from created by the Romans and the Greeks, are the ones in black and white in this screen, right? And these are the statues we are used to see. When we think about Greco-Roman statues, we think about white marble statues, right? And there were some periods of time that the fact that Greco-Roman sculptors and artists produced white marble statues was linked to racial superiority. Some probably ill-informed individuals took the fact that in the 18th, 19th, early 20th century they saw white marble statues. They interpreted this as an elegy to whiteness, that Greeks and Romans did statues that way because they wanted to emphasize they're proud and be white. But this could not be wrong enough, because more recent some spectrometers have been used to analyze these statues, and they discovered that actually these statues are very colorful. And it just happened that after thousands of years they lost their color, but using these spectrometry techniques they could find residuals of different pigments in the marble, and they reconstructed what those statues look like, of how they would probably look like, and we see there were plenty of colors, right? So using this analogy, what I like to say is that even though we see so many negative things being done using quantitative methods, that's not the true story. That's only one representation or one interpretation that some individuals give to these techniques based on what they see. But there's way more things under the hood, and things can be even more beautiful than the gray outputs we see from statistical and quantitative analysis, right? thank you for following me up to this point. I would finish saying that this is not, as you notice, a course on quantitative methods. It was not a full course on statistics. This was not even a course on data literacy or numeracy. I refer to this sequence of videos as an introduction to quantitative methods. It was mostly aimed to break the ice and start a conversation of these methods with you, and to foster your interest in learning more about them. And now, after watching all these videos, please share your feedback. This is my very first effort to create this type of content. I'm sure there's a lot to be improved. Some contents perhaps could be included, other contents could be included in the video, perhaps could be cut off. I will only know how to improve this content listening and hearing or reading your feedback. Okay, so thank you for your time, and I hope to talk to you very soon. Thank you and bye.